Up next, House File 4738, Representative Keeler. As Representative Keeler comes up, I'm going to move that House File 4738 be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2026 tax bill. Welcome back to the committee, Representative Keeler. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Gomez and members. This is a really meaningful bill to bring to the tax committee. I just want to say that I serve on Human Services, I serve on Health. In my time here, my first term, I served with you, Chair Gomez, as the Chair and Vice Chair of Preventing Homelessness. I've also sat in spaces around children, youth, and family, and the reality is sitting at those tables, we as committee members hear the hardest of the hard. We hear individuals show up across this state asking us to help invest in ways to literally save their lives. One of the things that we have worked a lot on in the state of Minnesota is building a robust safe harbor program. Safe harbor is a program and a tool that supports victims of sex trafficking. This is something that I've been working on my 6 years here. It's something that we've been working on as a state for a very long time. We know that many of you have had some sort of connection to Safe Harbor, whether it's been from training, whether it's been from understanding navigation, or more than that, we've done a really great job in the state of Minnesota investing in shelter capacity. The truth is the Human Services table, where we continue to have this conversation, is not a revenue generating table. We are given a budget, and it's our job to figure out who deserves the haves and have-nots at that table, and it's heartbreaking. Representative Norris, I believe, is the only one on this side of the table who serves on Human Services, and you can vouch for the really hard conversations we have to say no to every single day. It's my job as a legislator to try to get creative on ways that we can support the things that really matter. In Minnesota, I believe, and I think many of us believe, that it is important that we do not overlook the victims of sex trafficking. We do not overlook the victims of sexually exploited youth, and we know that this is a reality in the state of Minnesota. What we have today is a large lineup of testifiers that will help educate you about what we're doing around Safe Harbor, the impacts that we're seeing coming down from a federal level, and why we believe that that's just not fair for the state of Minnesota. This is a border-to-border program. We have navigators all across the regions. We know that this is not just a metro issue area. When we've looked at the student survey coming from schools, we know that the largest percent of yes is coming from the northwest corner of the state. So I just don't want us to get caught up in thinking this is a metro-only issue. This is something that we have to do really diligent work for, and I want to remind you guys that we have individuals in the state of Minnesota who are starting to be sex trafficked at as early as age 10, 11, and 12. That's not okay, and we have got to get serious about the ways that we continue to fund this. So we're here, Chair, to look at some of the options that we have, and with that, I'll send it over to my testifiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. First up, we have two testifiers on Zoom. Amber Sadowski.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Representative Davids.
If I could go before you start, I want to have full disclosure here that the funding is coming from a very important bill that I took many years to get passed. And what the bill does is it provides scholarship money for women's sports. So I'm not saying, as the testifiers go, I'm going to be taking very close notes, but I'm not saying this is not a worthy program. I am saying you have the wrong source, funding source, because it's not going to happen. So I don't like providing false hope for people or blowing blue smoke up people's noses when the funding source has to change, because it will not go this way. So I want the testifiers and everyone to know that while I may certainly support the program, I do not support the funding, because I am not going to take money out of women's sports scholarships. I'm not going to do that. So just so you know, we need to look at another funding source, because this one is not going to happen. As you said, you need a creative solution. This is not creative, this is dead. So let's get a different funding source. I'm not taking money out of women's sports at the U to fund this. We have to find a different way. If the committee thinks this is a good thing to do, there has to be another way to do it, because we're not doing it this way. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Representative Keeler, do you want me to go to your testifiers?
Thank you.
Amber Sadowski, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I'm Amber Sadowski, and I'm the Executive Director up at Lifehouse in Duluth. Each year we serve 800 youth, 80% of whom have experienced homelessness, and together our Soul House and Northern Lights Safe Harbor programs have served 123 youth for a total of over 26,000 bed nights. We've also provided 153 Safe Harbor youth with mental health services. For over 10 years, Safe Harbor funds have allowed us to provide compassionate care for youth who carry fear, uncertainty, and the lingering effects of trauma. Highly trained staff and a safe, welcoming environment offer youth a space to heal and thrive. Our Soul House program is one partner in a critical network of providers, and Lifehouse serves youth from our Northeast region and from across the state. In Duluth specifically, we have a history of human trafficking because one aspect of that is that we're an ocean port community. Additionally, according to the 2025 MDH Safe Harbor evaluation to the legislature, the majority of Safe Harbor service users were from Greater Minnesota, and that was 63%. Limited economic opportunity is also a risk factor for exploitation, and in northeastern Minnesota, we face a poverty rate of almost 13%, which is well above the state average. Safe Harbor funds really support safe, compassionate, licensed programs where survivors can live and truly know that they are safe. Your investment in Safe Harbor has been life-changing. 2,000 Safe Harbor youth were served during the 2-year evaluation period of the MDH report that I previously mentioned. And I'm also here to advocate for an increase in funding. Rising costs are stretching our resources thin, while the needs are still unfortunately very high, and just program expenses continue to rise while our funding hasn't met those needs. Your support impacts countless young lives and generations beyond. Today, I'm very proud to be testifying alongside Shyla Johnson, who is a Lifehouse alumni and a former Safe Harbor youth. She stayed in our Soul House program for about 2 years, and I'm so proud of her, and I really appreciate her being here today. She's a leader in a local homelessness advocacy group here in Duluth and is an amazing mom to her young son. Shyla is one of over 123 youth that we've had the honor of serving in our Safe Harbor program. So thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and to share some data and the impact of our collective work with Safe Harbor.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Up next, Shyla Johnson, also on Zoom. Please introduce yourself and go ahead with your testimony.
Hi, hello members of the committee. My name is Shyla Johnson. I'm testifying today in support of the bill for Safe Harbor funding. As Amber mentioned, I am a recent alumni youth. I am a mother to my 4-year-old son, Amric, and I am currently a leader in my homelessness advocacy group called Streetwise in Duluth. So being a recent youth at Lifehouse, I used to stay in the Soul House program. I was in there for over 2 years. I was homeless for a little bit of time before I went there. That just happened to be the place where I ended up. While I was in the program, I actually was able to accomplish a lot of things that I didn't think I was going to accomplish as a young adult. I graduated high school while being in the program. I got my first car while I was there. I also met a lot of wonderful youth there that I actually was able to form lasting relationships with. I'm still best friends with somebody there that I still talk to every day. I got my first apartment too. I graduated high school and then I got my first apartment. Soul House actually threw me a graduation party and they helped me get stuff for my new place. So that was really helpful. So they basically helped me get started as a young adult, which meant a lot to me because I was homeless and struggled a lot as a young adult. So having this program there for me was really helpful to jumpstart me as a young adult. The program also provided me with different educational groups. They provided me with a safe place. They provided me with stability that I needed at the time to be able to go out into the world. Lifehouse is like a second family to me. I always consider them as family because that's just what they feel like to me. I don't know if I would be like where I am today without them. They provided me with lots of different opportunities. They thought of me. They've cheered me in the background for all my accomplishments through the way. And I think that every youth would benefit from this program. And now I am currently in college fulfilling my Associates of Arts degree online while being a leader in my Streetwise group. While parenting my only son who will be starting preschool this year. Yeah, I have lots of relationships that I still talk with today with these people at Lifehouse. I know that I can always reach out to them if I need, because I know I felt valued. They made me feel valued when I was in their program. So they are people that I trust, and that's a lot to me. So I think that this funding is very important because it did change my life and provided me with a lot of stuff that I use today with my own child. So I think that this funding should continue. And with that, I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Up next, James Lewis with the link, and then on deck, Chloe Rosabella. Thank you for joining the committee. Please introduce yourself as you get started with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairs Gomez and Davids. My name is James Lewis. I currently serve as Chief Program Officer with The Link. The Link is a youth and adult-led nonprofit based in North Minneapolis that provides street outreach, drop-in center, shelter and housing, along with other services for youth and young families experiencing homelessness, sex trafficking, or who are involved in the juvenile non-justice system. I'm also here representing the Youth Services Network, which is a statewide collaborative of homeless youth providers serving agencies across the state of Minnesota. Today, I'm testifying in strong support of House File 4738, which provides much-needed additional funding for emergency shelter and housing for children and youth who are victims of sex trafficking. We have made some great progress in the fight against sex trafficking through all of your help with passing the Safe Harbor Law and providing critical resources for shelter, housing, and services for trafficking victims. Thank you so much for that support. I also really want to sincerely thank many of our partners, including local professional sports teams such as the Vikings, Timberwolves, and Lynx for supporting us in the anti-trafficking movements along with the NFL and the NBA. A key example of this strong support and partnership was when Minneapolis hosted the Super Bowl back in 2018. The NFL invested funding to support us along with our partners, Streetworks and the Family Partnership, to provide increased street outreach, drop-in center hours, and emergency shelter for victims of sex trafficking, along with having us train their 50,000 Crew 52 volunteers. The NFL also supported an anti-trafficking awareness campaign designed by youth survivors from The Link. Although we are grateful for the progress that we have made across the state to fight sex trafficking, we still have so much more work to do. I know that no one wants to think about our children being bought and sold for another person's profit, but it's happening every day all across the state of Minnesota. The 2022 Minnesota Student Survey found that at least 4,800 youth in Minnesota high schools had experienced sexual exploitation. This is absolutely unacceptable and concerning because we know that this is actually an undercount. Unfortunately, The link is unique that we are one of the state's few emergency shelter and housing programs specifically for victims of sex trafficking. This is our Passageways and Emergency Shelter Housing Program. There are only 2 shelters specifically serving victims of sex trafficking in our state and 5 housing programs, totaling fewer than 200 emergency beds and housing units combined. We know this is not enough, but are still grateful to have Passageways Shelter and Housing Program. It is literally saving lives on a daily basis. But we do not have enough room for all the trafficking victims who need support. Every month, we turn away at least 16 youth who have been trafficked due to being full, and that equals about 192 victims each year that have been turned away. And right now, currently, we have a wait list of at least 25 victims of sex trafficking waiting to get into our housing program. In addition to our own agency's information, we also know there is a high demand for shelter and housing for sex trafficking victims across the entire state. During the last biennium, 26-27, DHS received $23.3 million in requests for funding for the Safe Harbor Emergency Shelter and Housing RFP, and was only able to award less than half of the requests at about $11.46 million. This funding is extremely critical and needed to support these amazing youth. We appreciate all that you have done in hearing us today, so thank you for your support.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, Chloe Rosabella, welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself as you get started.
Thank you, Chairs Gomez and David, for having me here today. My name is Chloe Rosabella, and I am currently a member and co-chair of one of the Link's youth advisory committees, and I also live in one of their housing programs. I personally experienced homelessness and sex trafficking after being kicked out of my family home at age 12, when my very strict religious family found out I was queer. I found myself wandering in the streets for 2 weeks trying to do everything I could do to survive, trying to figure out my next hot meal to eat, or my next hot shower to take, and my next warm, comfortable bed to sleep on. I stumbled upon a family friend who spotted me on the streets and proceeded to take me under their wing and care. A woman who I thought cared and liked me for who I am. Eventually, she started forcing me to perform sexual favors for men who stopped by on the weekends. They were sometimes physically violent if I didn't do what they wanted. This was a woman I truly thought cared about me and who saw me as a part of her family, but she really truly only saw me as her asset, her next paycheck, and overall, her property. After being there for 2 months, I couldn't endure her manipulation or any of her abuse any longer. I felt ashamed, disgusted, useless, and weakened by the physical, mental, and emotional pain I went through. I went back wandering through the streets again, trying to survive for the next 3 months. I did what I learned to do when I was first kicked out of my home in order to survive, picking out food from the garbage, asking people for their leftovers outside of restaurants, or asking for money, even sometimes having to exchange sexual favors for either money or a place to sleep when the offer came. Some days I felt like my life wasn't worth living during those hard, cold, painful months. Eventually, I connected with the Link's Passageways Emergency Shelter, which helped me so much with school, healthcare, supporting me around my goals, and more. The incredible staff of the Link have been there for me during my hard times and traumatic moments. After over half a decade at the shelter program, Passageways, the Link continued working with me and helping me grow into a strong young adult. I have been through a lot and have worked very hard to get to where I am today, which is someone who graduated from high school, has a job, and a goal of becoming a mortician. I am proud how far I've come, but was one of many who needed to have help of an emergency shelter in order to get to where I am today. I strongly urge all of you to support the House File HF 4738. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for being with us, and we really appreciate you sharing your story with us. It means a lot to have you here. Thank you. Up next, Alec Williams, followed by Shunu Shrestha, excuse me. Welcome back to the committee, Mr. Williams.
Chair Gomez, Chair Davids, members of the committee, my name is Alec Williams, and I'm a researcher for We Make Minnesota, a coalition of labor unions and grassroots organizations advocating for a fair tax code that funds the public services that Minnesotans rely on. Thank you for the opportunity to share our perspective on House File 4738, which ends the sales tax exemption for preferred seating at athletic and entertainment events. We support this policy because it will raise needed revenue in a fair and targeted way and dedicate it to a deeply important public program. Suites are a high-end discretionary purchase. The average cost of a suite to watch the Wolves or Wild is $4,000 to $8,000 per game. Twins games are similar, but can reach $41,000 per game for the largest suites. For a Vikings game, suite costs range from $25,000 to $75,000 per game. Most fans already pay sales tax on tickets and concessions, but our current tax code exempts purchases of suite licenses, premium season ticket packages, and many of the amenities included in those packages. House File 4738 would apply the sales tax to those purchases, closing an exemption that mainly benefits individuals and businesses who can afford to spend thousands of dollars on better seats and a more exclusive experience at sporting events. We Make Minnesota generally does not advocate for dedicated revenue, but we are in favor of policies that broaden the sales tax base to fund important public priorities. Just under $9 million annually for the Safe Harbor program is a worthwhile investment in supporting Minnesota's youth who have experienced sexual exploitation. In addition to the moral necessity highlighted by previous testifiers, it is also a highly cost-effective investment. Prior research on trafficking intervention and prevention services suggests that every dollar invested yields approximately $34 in societal benefits, reflecting reduced long-term costs in healthcare and other social services. This suggests that the $8.8 million annual investment could result in almost $300 million in benefits. In conclusion, House File 4738 appropriately closes a narrow tax exemption that primarily benefits high-income discretionary spending and redirects those resources towards a program that serves Minnesota's most vulnerable residents. We urge the committee to support House File 4738. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Up next, Shunu Shrestha. Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself as you get started.
Co-Chair Gomez, Co-Chair Davids, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify here today. My name is Shunu Shrestha, and I serve as the Senior Advisor for the Human Trafficking and Exploitation Prevention efforts within the Neighborhood Safety Department for the City of Minneapolis. In my role, I work across the city departments and with community partners on issues related to human trafficking and exploitation. Over the past 20-plus years in the field and movement, including 7+ years with the city, I've seen one pattern continue to emerge. That is, the lack of safe, stable housing significantly increases vulnerability to exploitation and trafficking and remains one of the most critical barriers to safety. And we see this reflected in the data. Through the city-supported and funded Upside project in 2022, our partners, the Family Partnership, The Link, Breaking Free, and Minnesota Indian Women's Resource Center reached over 4,300 individuals at risk of or exploitation. When we look at housing status at the time of outreach, 339 individuals were living on the street or in encampments, while only 3 were living in emergency shelter. That gap reflects what we are seeing across the system. And even when outreach and service providers building trust and creating pathways to support, the availability of shelter and housing does not meet those needs. At that point, without a safe place to go, the ability to exit exploitation for many victim survivors becomes significantly more difficult. At the same time, we also see what is possible when stability and support are available. Among individuals engaged in ongoing services through this program, 60% showed improvement in their stability and well-being over time. That tells us that when people have access to consistent support and housing, they move towards safety, healing, and recovery. I also do want to note that this is a year-round issue. Trafficking and exploitation are not confined to a single event. While large-scale events may increase visibility or place additional pressure on systems, they do not create the underlying need. What those moments can offer, however, is a clear example of what a coordinated response can look like. During Super Bowl Lee, partners across systems, law enforcement, service providers, outreach teams, and community organizations such as the Link, the Family Partnership, and Streetworks worked very closely together to expand outreach, increase services, and strengthen coordination on the ground. That level of alignment and investment made a significant difference in how the systems responded then. And that is the kind of coordinated, well-resourced response is what we need, not just during major sporting events, but every day. Because ultimately, what those moments reveal is whether our systems have the capacity to respond, and whether that capacity exists when it's needed most. From the city's perspective, that capacity, particularly in shelter and housing, remains significantly underfunded and insufficient, making safe harbor, shelter, and housing a critical part of the response. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else present who wishes to testify on House File 4738? All right, not seeing any, we will move to member discussion. Representative Hewitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler, for carrying this bill. And with all respect to Chair Davis, I know that you totally value these services that are being provided, but I think that, and to go to Representative Keeler, this group does not have a lobbyist. She has been champion in many of these groups that don't have the big money to come up here and talk to us and do things like this. And so I really got to hand it to her and her work that she's done up here for champion issues that are underserved communities. But if we don't have this, then where can we find it? Can we raise this tax another 3% to cover some services like this? I mean, this is one of those things that we all look back and say it's working. We heard from the testifier in Duluth, who was totally amazing. We all know that we have to break the circuit, and she's doing exactly that with the help of this community. And she's talking about the values she's putting into her own child right now, and it makes me tear up when I hear that, that's where good parenting is, right there, is breaking the circuit. And to the young lady that wants to go in the funeral industry, get a hold of my office. I have some mentors for you. So I just wanted to make the statement. I hope there's a way we can find, if not this, then what? I'm sure there's some place we could find this, because this is really important. And thank you, Representative Keeler, for championing projects like this.
Thank you, Representative Hewitt. We'll hook you up on the mortician science front. Representative Smith.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Rep. Keeler, for this bill, and an even greater thanks to those who testified and shared their stories. I have a clarifying question. This might be for Rep. Keeler. Maybe this is someone from the department. There was mention of a shortfall of funds for this program. What is the current, I guess, demand is sort of a weird question for this sort of program, but what funding is this looking for based just on current requests?
Welcome to the committee. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Chair Gomez and Davids, and thank you so much, Representative Keeler, for bringing this forward. My name is Beth Holger. I'm the CEO of the Link, and I'm also part of the YSN. And what I will say is that the need is incredibly high. Right now, we have a little over 11 million that's allocated over 2 years for safe harbor emergency shelter at the state level. The Link, along with many of our other partners, has received federal cuts this year from the Federal Department of Public Safety Office of Victims of Crime for our sex trafficking services. So we have lost $500,000. and we are struggling to figure out what to do, as well as other partner organizations as well. So we are facing shortfalls from the federal government, along with the already unmet need that we spoke to. We're turning away nearly 200 youth a year from our shelter, and we currently have 25 victims of sex trafficking on our wait list, and it's heartbreaking to turn them away. So we're one agency that can speak to that.
Thank you. Representative Smith.
I really appreciate that. And the reason I asked the question is from the fiscal note here, the fund impact, we see that this is about $8 million to $9 million a year. And we talk a lot about budgets being moral documents. And Rep. Keeler, I think you've brought like a perfect example of that, where we have folks who life has been very kind to, not just that they can go see live sporting events, but that they're able to afford to see it in very nice suites and pay for the license to continue to have those nice seats and enjoy that. And there's no begrudging them that. I love going seeing live sports, but paying sales tax on that means that folks like we have heard from today get the help that they need when life has been unkind to them and find themselves in some of the most difficult situations we find. These are tax questions, but they're also moral questions. And so thank you for bringing that forward. This might be for nonpartisan or for Chair David. To your question earlier, objection earlier, I believe is the repeal on subdivision 38. Nonpartisan, do we know like what percentage of this overall $8 million figure is specifically for collegiate sports?
Ms. Templin.
Madam Chair and Representative Smith, I did anticipate this question, and I did reach out to the Department of Revenue to ask for a breakdown of the general fund impact of the different repeals. There's a suite license repeal, the collegiate seating repeal, and the amenities repeal. Approximately 85% of the revenue gain would be from the suites repeal, 10% would be from collegiate seats, and 5% from amenities, and that's a rough estimate.
Representative Smith.
And the motion is to lay this over, correct, for possible inclusion?
Yes, Representative Smith.
I might just say, in the interest of, I think, a good bill going forward, with that, knowing that 10% is only on that subdivision 38, potentially striking that provision. Chair Davids, I'm sure we can talk about this. So it doesn't touch on that scholarship funding at all, and yet still gives safe harbor grants at least something to fill up that federal funding that is lost. I think that's hopefully something that we can do if we have a tax bill. So it's a great bill. Thank you very much, Representative Keeler, for bringing this. And again, those who spoke and shared their stories, it is not easy to do so here, and we truly thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. We have a couple more members. I just was going to ask nonpartisan, as long as we were kind of digging into this appendix to the bill here. Do we have any information about, that we talked about scholarships for women's sports. It says for these, they're the licenses, right, to buy the season tickets. It's not the tickets themselves. As long as it's used entirely to support student scholarships, wellness, and academic costs, which are three very different things. And if you're talking about putting them into academic costs, I know that there are now students at the U are being charged a fee related to supporting college sports, so we're sort of doing a little bit of money moving around, but I wonder if there's any information that we have about that breakdown at all. I know I didn't ask you to prepare this, Ms. Templin, so maybe this is going beyond what you have access to.
Madam Chair, unfortunately, I do not have the granular
you.
detail, but it is something I can look into.
Thank you. Is there anybody present from the University of Minnesota who can address the breakdown of these functions, student scholarships, wellness, and academic costs, and then particularly because we heard about scholarships for women's sports, what the percentage of and the dollar amounts are there? Anyone present? Seeing some movement. Hi, welcome to the committee. Please just introduce yourself for the record as you proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Travis Cameron. I'm with the University of Minnesota Athletic Department. The way we allocate these funds associated with ticket purchases go directly to a scholarship seating scholarship fund. So the funds can only be used for scholarships. I understand that's how the bill was written, but how they are allocated with ticket purchases is directly towards scholarships.
Thank you. And just since the women's sports was specifically mentioned, can you tell us how much of that goes to women's sports?
I can, with a few minutes, I can calculate that for you. What I can tell you is of the distribution. Football is obviously a men's sport, so just in light of time, accounts for approximately, I'm sorry, maybe it'd be best appropriate if I just calculated those for you quickly.
All right, sounds
Would that
good.
be okay, madam?
Yep.
Thank you.
We would love to just get you back up here if you can come up with the numbers. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, apologies. I just thought as long as we were talking about those fiscal issues, we should deal with them. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Keeler, for bringing this bill. And to all of your testifiers, it was very impactful. And to the young lady who is interested in going into the funeral business, my dad was a mortician as well. And I know you will have a compassionate heart for families in need. So I just wanted to talk about the funding source, because my understanding is most of your current funding for these programs out of DHS?
Representative Keeler or Ms. Holger?
Yeah, so in the past, it's kind of been a partnership between DHS and Department of Health because there's a navigator system here too, so it's been an overlap. Again, the reason why we're here is because when we sit in Human Services, we just get a budget that's sent to us, and then we're already very underfunded on all the services that we have to provide. And so, yes, at this point, a majority of the shelter capacity and the navigation systems are through DHS and Department of Health.
Yeah, so this is funded by general fund dollars, which are also general fund dollars here from this funding source. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Chair Gomez. So I would just like to suggest that we close the housing stabilization program, which was rife with fraud, $100 million a year. And the governor's proposal is to try to reconstitute that program. I don't think we need the housing stabilization program. It was a failure. And rather than reconstitute
Representative Robbins, it's not actually a tax provision. I'll let you finish,
right.
but let's
rather than
finish it up.
reconstitute that, I think we should try and get the money that's somewhere in the ether in the DHS budget for housing stabilization.
Thank you,
and use
Representative
it for
Robbins.
this. So I encourage you to talk with them about that, because I think there is money out there that hasn't, since we closed the program, I don't know what happened to that budget
Representative
allocation.
Robbins, thank you. Please conclude your
Okay,
your
I
remarks.
am trying to provide a helpful suggestion, Madam Chair. I do think there's money sort of left on the table from the closure of housing stabilization
Thank
that
you.
we could repurpose.
Thank you. Yeah. Representative Keeler is the vice chair of the Human Services Committee, and so I know that she sits in those spaces 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm sure knows that in and
3
out.
times 8:15.
3 times a week, 8:15 a.m. if anybody's counting. Thank you, Representative Robbins. Representative Kozlowski.
Thank you, Chair, and to Representative Keeler, I just want to say to you, first of all, miigwech to the work that you're doing, and this is one of the issues that you and I both know drove us to the Capitol and on a mission to end violence because it's at the root of so many issues impacting our communities, and I just want to say miigwech to you for being a freaking legend. I think I just kind of want to level set and bring us back, as I feel like I often do in this committee, to what we're really doing in the heart of this bill. And as somebody who's played sports growing up, basketball and broomball and hockey and soccer, know that sports is really magical and it can bring people together in so many beautiful ways, especially for our young people, but that there is a reality that's a shadowy side that's tearing apart communities and lives. And we know that human trafficking, whether that's sex trafficking, labor, that also has lots of ripples of domestic violence, happens in and around and through sports. And to everybody who is out there listening and in these rooms, we often talk about how our communities are vulnerable, but we're not vulnerable, we're preyed upon. And trafficking cuts across every single committee, and so I appreciate the conversation we're having about what budget, what funding mechanism this should come from, or what it shouldn't come from. But in the same way, when we talk about housing, every committee should be working on that. You know, this is housing, public safety, human services, on and on. And we know our funding comes in pieces, but our people don't. And it was brought up here of the word demand. And that is uncomfortable to say, Representative Smith, because the reality is that just yesterday it was Missing Murdered Black Relatives Day on the Hill. And it's, you know, every month I swear we have a Missing Murdered Indigenous Relatives. We have the task force in the work, and I have personally led on the anti-violence against Latina relatives. But the word demand is literally in every report we've done. Demand for sex and violence. There is a demand for sex and violence of our women, girls, our two-spirits, and our relatives, and even our young boys. Internet, extractive industries, entertainment, hotels, and sporting events are on the list of systemic things we must invest in and end in Minnesota. The reality is that we see it intensify, and this is a $150 billion industry. Human trafficking, sex trafficking is a $150 billion industry. We see it in NCAA basketball tourneys, Olympics, World Cups, Super Bowl, concerts, and conventions. And it doesn't just happen on the biggest stages. We have it right here in our own backyards. And even, frankly, legislators, we must face it, that it's under our dome with legislators committed, charged with sex trafficking rings. And so what I want to lift up today is what we've heard from the work of the successes of what we're investing in into our Lifehouse and Streetwise in Duluth that talks about what we're seeing is also increased enforcement and reporting, and that is a good thing. And that with Lifehouse and Shy, who this is a really important, amazing, glowing young person in my community. I personally know her and have seen the work that she's doing and the work that Safe Harbor does to make sure that we're treating people as human beings and victims and not criminals. But I want to say to you that you're not just victims, that you're born survivors and that you are legacy makers, like our testifier here who is, we've talked about going on to become a mortician. In my community, we call people deadly as a praise, and so I look forward to you going into that career as well. But I want to bring us back and just close with saying that, you know, Chair Davids, I have a lot of respect for you and the work that we've done here. And I think that the way that Representative Keeler and these testifiers and every survivor around the state was just told no. The thing is that the number one thing you can't tell a Native person or a survivor is no, because we hear that every single day. But we owe you a debt of gratitude, and that this is a small price to pay, and no matter how we can figure out the funding, that it's worth it to actually protect our women and girls, our boys and our relatives. But I can't sit here and feel the contempt that we have for people of color and for women and survivors coming before us. And the first thing that they hear out of the gate is this isn't happening. This is, because we need to wake up and understand that this is happening to us every single day, every single day. And so this committee owes Representative Keeler and every single survivor an apology, and we can do that best by making sure that we're funding this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Kozlowski. Representative Joachim? Oh, are you good?
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I think Representative Kozlowski said it all.
Thank you. Is there any further member discussion before we go to Chair Davids? All right. I just also want to, before we go to Chair Davids, have the last word before the author, to thank Representative Keeler. Just during her time here, during your time here, you have been laser focused on making sure that people have a dignified place to lay their head at night, that people have food in their bellies, and that sex trafficking victims have the services and the support that they need to restabilize their lives. And it has just been a through line in your time here. And it's something that you have made all of those issues. I know that you care about a lot of other stuff and you work on a lot of other things, but your impact on those issues will be felt across the state for generations. And so we thank you for that. I just will say, every decision that we make around these tables is about trade-offs. Every time we spend $1 on something, we're not spending $1 on something else. And so when we have members of our community, Minnesotans, coming and telling us, you know, I've had a really rough go of it and I need some help from this system in order, you know, to get my life to where it needs to be so that I can be a, you know, full and contributing member of my community. And we are presented a way to pay for it, which repeals mostly 85% of this money is a sales tax exemption on college or on stadium suites. Millions and millions and millions of dollars going out, not to scholarships for women's sports, not to wellness or academic costs. That's way less than 10% of this. But going to the people purchasing stadium suites. They get $8 million out of the state every year. $8 million that could be going to support sex trafficking victims, and we thank Representative Keeler for bringing this forward and highlighting that every decision we make is about trade-offs and that we show who we're here to fight for in those decisions every single day. Thank you. Chair Davids.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and I wish members were listening a little bit closer to what I said. I have no problem with what the base bill does, but the funding is not going to happen this way. Was I clear on that? I thought I was very clear. Nothing wrong with the bill itself. It's the funding. We're not going to fund it this way. Just being upfront, we spend way too much time on a bill that's not going to be funded this way. This is so sad. Why is this bill not in Health and Human Services? You get nothing and never have received anything from the tax committee. I'm going to go talk to the Speaker's office and ask the Speaker, why was this sent to taxes? This is clearly an HHS bill. It's clearly a housing bill. It is not a tax bill. Why, you know, all the stuff as Health and Human Services, why are you in tax committee? So I'll have that discussion myself with the Speaker. The link is not funded from the tax committee. None of these groups are. Not one dime comes from taxes. This bill is not a tax bill. I can't stand getting people's hopes up and then not following through. That's just wrong to do this to people. So wrong. So this is not a whole lot of money. A lot of other funding mechanisms. This bill doesn't belong here. I love this place so much because we have a bill here that takes money away from sports teams that are funding their programs. I've never seen that before. One of the testifiers said they get money from the Vikings and whoever else. So you're getting money from these groups and then you're taking their money. That's a first for me, and I've only been here a few years. You know, I was born on a day, but it won yesterday. And to take money from a group that is supporting you is just ungentlemanly, I would say. So again, testifiers, go to the right committee. Go to the right committee. You're not in the right committee. And like I said, I'll have that discussion with the Speaker. With the last 4 or 5 weeks here, members, you're going to be hearing this a lot from me. Does the bill bring us closer to resolution or put us further away? This one puts us way further away. We need to work on bills that bring us closer together. Representative Keeler, your bill itself, fine. You got to find a different funding mechanism. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Keeler.
Thank you for the conversation. From my understanding, actually, all the budgets come from taxes, so this is absolutely a place to be. I want to say I've been having a lot of conversations in the communities about taxes. I've never sat on taxes, and so I got the tax expenditure book, which I encourage all of you in Minnesota to look at. It is a book about this thick that talks about all of the tax giveaways that we give to millionaires and billionaires for entertainment. And so this is why we're here, right? Because the reality is when I talk to everyday Minnesotans, I use the example. If we go to a football game and we're regular Minnesotans and we go watch our Vikings, we pay a tax on our regular seat. You know who doesn't pay a tax? Millionaires, corporate entities that are deciding to entertain themselves 85% of this is for the suites for that. So what we're saying is that if we captured that tax from millionaires on their entertainment and sent it over to Safe Harbor, that would be a good thing for us to do. We see this deflection all the time. It's nothing new that a white man's gonna yell around in the corner about sex trafficking and violence against victims. It's not new to us. I think Representative Kozlowski said it very well. It was really disheartening that we come here because we have tried every angle in the human services. And I really hope you follow up with Speaker Dameth. I'll join you in making sure that we get more money then in our human services budget when we are always on the shortfall of things, that we have to get creative to go outside of our own committee lane to try to get creative. I don't know if you've ever experienced working with a youth who has been sex trafficked, grown men, some of which have traveled here to do their job and have been busted, some of which who have gone, in 2023, we had an individual who was sentenced to 21 years because they ran the largest sex trafficking ring in this state, and a lot of that money that was earned, where was that put? Into political pockets. So we know that there is an overlap. It's not a surprise that we're gonna deflect talking about women's sports. The U never came even back up to tell us how much of the percent went to women's sports to justify what they were talking about. We tried to yell around about fraud because that's another tactic that we use to move away from the reality of the fact that individuals in this state and in this nation believe that it is okay for adults to buy children to have sexual intercourse with them, and we are saying it's not okay. We are getting creative. We are going outside of the lanes of opportunity because I am telling you, human services does not have the money to see what is happening on the shortfall. These individuals, our youth, deserves for other tables to get brave enough to think of ways that they can support all of us. This is a true and honest way. This isn't a gimmick. This isn't take me back to my committee. I am here at the tax table to start thinking about a new way. And I hope other people find this as an example of ways that we can go find other money. We give away millions and billions of dollars to millionaires to entertain themselves in this state while we are suffering and we need to support our youth. Thank you for the honest consideration. Thank you for those of you who actually listened to the testifiers and the stories. This is heartbreaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I will renew my motion that House File 4738 be laid over for possible inclusion in the 2026 tax bill, and it is laid over. Thank you to everybody who came to testify on the bill. We really appreciate it.